Hello and welcome to episode 94 of Driver Seat Blog Radio. As always, I'm your host, David G. Firestone. So I'm still dealing with issues related to the hard drive crash. I did lose several months worth of research, so I'm trying to dig myself out of this hole, and I still plan on starting wheel reviews early this year, but I'm going to push the date back to November 24th. I should have enough material to cover for the time being, and I will do a NASCAR ratings episode on the 17th. Now, with that said, there was a lot of news that I just wasn't able to cover due to the getting my computer back online after the crash, so I will start with NASCAR news, and I will start with Ryan Newman's penalty. He was fined $10,000 for a safety violation. Specifically, he, for reasons only known to him, decided not to wear a head sock, which, if you remember, became mandatory, I think, either late last year or early this year. Now, for the sake of clarification, this infraction comes under sections 8.3.2a and 14.2.1.1 A and F under the driver responsibilities and driver protective clothing and equipment rules from the NASCAR rulebook. Now, with that said, let me ask a question. Let me ask a real question. Newman's a veteran. If you remember a few years ago, he was involved in a horrific wreck at the Daytona 500 that put him out of action for, several months? So can I ask a real question here? In what part of his brain did he think this was a good idea? Did he honestly think he wasn't going to get caught? And for that matter, why wouldn't he be wearing a head sock? What's the strategy here? It's not going to provide you any tactical advantage, especially because you're driving for Rick Ware. And I say this because the entire point of a head sock is to keep you from being burned if you're caught up in a fiery wreck, which in racing is always a possibility. And again, as I said after the Daytona 500 wreck, if anybody should be in favor of safety equipment, it should be Ryan Newman. Hell, Chandler Smith got busted for wearing one. Chandler Smith got busted for not wearing one during qualifying at Talladega, and I'd say that these days, Chandler Smith is a bit higher up on the food chain than Ryan Newman is. Now, granted, Ryan's a future Hall of Famer, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Newman has nobody to blame but himself for his wallet being $10,000 lighter. And again, Newman, great driver, future Hall of Famer, but it's just stupid. I'm sorry. Not wearing safety equipment is stupid. I don't care what industry we're talking about. I don't care if it's racing. I don't care if you work in a factory. I don't care if you're a chemist. I don't care if you work at Walmart. Safety equipment can and will save your life, so use it whenever you can. Now we're going to stay on the Rick Ware Racing because at this point, Rick Ware Racing has become the Carolina Panthers of NASCAR. They're spending lots and lots of money and resources, but have zero on-track success, at least in NASCAR. Well, it looks like Rick Ware and his team finally caught a break in NASCAR. On October 26th, Bob Pockrass tweeted the following, link in the description. Quote, NASCAR says it will not repossess Rick Ware Racing number 51 charter even if in bottom 3 of charter teams this year. It would be NASCAR's option and rule designed to prevent start and park. RWR's RFK Alliance use of Roush Yates engines, citing Haley, shows commitment to performance. Okay. That actually makes sense. I mean, we've given them a lot of shit over the years, not just me, but a lot of NASCAR fans, but they are actually trying. It's not like they're not like a team that's just trying to come out and scam NASCAR. But here's my question. What about the number 15's charter? I mean, let's be honest, it's not like these two teams are that far apart in terms of performance. I mean, Rick Ware Racing is on borrowed time. They're on life support. And Rick Ware Racing is not long for this world, so... And in the eyes of a lot of fans, this move only really delays the inevitable for some time. But can we talk about Roush Fenway Keselowski, or RFK? I mean, could we stop pretending that they're a powerhouse team? Could we stop pretending they're championship caliber at this point? I mean, yeah, they can win a few races, which they did this year, but look at what they did in the playoffs. They didn't do much. They're a spent force. Even with Keselowski as an owner, they're still a spent force. And I think that the only way to make Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing better is to get rid of Jack Roush. I've been saying this for years. He is the reason that team is not doing well. The decisions that he made are why the team is in the state that it's in. As I said last week, nobody blames Melvin the janitor for the business going under, but then at the same time, nobody gives a shit what Melvin the janitor thinks about how the boardroom meeting is going. So the problems aren't coming from the people at the bottom. They're from the people at the top. And when you have a consistent history of questionable decisions, questionable moves, and a bunch of other issues that are just, they don't seem to go away because the owner is the owner, might be a sign that you should find someone better. I'm sorry. Roush can be successful without Jack Roush. I think that's been proven over the last few years. So we're going to stick with Ford since both are Ford programs, and I've been wondering about this because I'd been hearing. I didn't comment on it because I don't really comment on rumors as much as I should, but I was wondering how Ford was going to step up his game for next year because I'd heard about this. On November 1st, it was announced that the Cup Series Mustang will take the form of the 2024 Ford Mustang Dark Horse. Now, the Mustang Dark Horse is the iteration of the Mustang that Ford will start selling in 2024. Now, I think Brad Keselowski made a very, very apt comment during the unveiling. Specifically, he said, quote, "If she gallops as fast as she looks, it's going to be a good year," end quote. Well, we'll have to see. Because I'm going to say, this is going to be a weird comparison, but I promise you it does make sense. If Pontiac's 1998 season is any indication, just because you have something that looks good in a simulator and in wind tunnel testing doesn't mean it will work on track. If you remember, the 1998 Pontiac season was awful. The entire program was horrendously slow for the entire season. So every time you make a change to your program, you run that risk. It was like when Ford first debuted the Taurus. A lot of people on Ford teams weren't doing as well as they were with the Thunderbird. So every time you change your program, you run that risk. I'll be interested to see how this works out, but I'll hold my judgment. And I know I say that a lot, but that's just how it works. Now, we have something that has happened recently that I didn't even notice, but it is kind of heartwarming. Now, the NASCAR world is losing a loyal sponsor. Specifically, they've lost Smithfield Foods. Now, when it comes to paint schemes, I've given Smithfield Food schemes all sorts of grades over the years, but I always loved the Fueled by Bacon on the rear. I didn't realize this, but Smithfield was very, very loyal to Eric Almirola, where a sponsor being loyal to a single-year driver is becoming increasingly rare in this day and age. Well, in NASCAR. You've seen it a bit more in the NHRA, but that's another can of worms. Now, on Twitter, which I refuse to call X, Smithfield stated the following. Smithfield Foods congratulates Eric Almirola on his excellent run with Stewart-Haas Racing. With Eric's decision to explore new opportunities, the time has come for Smithfield to end our NASCAR partnership. Smithfield sponsored Almirola for 12 seasons dating back to 2012, his first full season at the Cup level. Almirola won 3 races in Smithfield colors, with 2 of those coming under the SHR banner. Almirola finished a career-high 5th in points during the 2018 season. Eric has been an incredible ambassador for Smithfield over the last 12 seasons, and we enjoyed an outstanding relationship with Stewart-Haas Racing in our 6 seasons together. We plan on finishing 2023 strong, and we wish Eric and Stewart-Haas Racing all the best. Now, again, it's touching that you see a sponsor that's loyal to a singular driver because most are loyal to the teams that they're in. Some don't even have any loyalty at all. It's just that's just how it is. And I'm also not going to say that this is a permanent goodbye because there's nothing ruling out that they might come back as a sponsor. It very well could happen. I've seen it happen before. But it is sad to see a sponsor with such loyalty leave the sport and not come back. Vaya con Dios, Smithfield. So I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go on a rant about a story that's been getting a lot of press lately, so I'll be right back. Welcome back. Since this story has gotten some traction lately, I'm going to discuss this. Our story today involves the Toccoa, or Toccoa Riverside Restaurant in Blue Ridge, Georgia in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Recently, they have come into the public eye because they have a policy where they will add as much as $50 to your bill if you have children and they're loud and unruly in the restaurant. Naturally, the parents of these children are livid and have been giving the restaurant negative reviews. And some of these links were from the news story in ABC 7 Chicago, link in the description. These are some of the reviews that are left. Quote, if you have children, absolutely avoid this place at all costs. Holy moly, the most disrespectful owner made a huge scene in front of the entire restaurant because our children were running through the restaurant. They were down by the river. We were told we need to, quote, go to Burger King and Walmart and that we were bad parents. They have a $50 surcharge for, quote, unquote, bad children. We were a group of 21 and our server was amazing and overly apologetic. Terrible business practice. We will never be back. Another reviewer said, the owner came out and told me he was adding $50 to my bill because of my children's behavior. My kids watched a tablet till the food arrived, ate their food, and my wife took them outside while I waited and paid the bill. Disappointed by the experience. The third and final review on the story read, if you have children, I don't recommend you're going here. The owner was so rude to my grandkids, he made the 3-year-old cry. He told them if they sat by the river, they had to be quiet. What owner talks to his customers like that? I'll never come back. I'm told he's like this to a lot of people. Now again, these are some of the reviews that the angry parents have left. Well, I'm going to talk about this. Because as somebody who doesn't have kids, I'm going to say this. If you get fined $50 for children who are loud and unruly in a nice restaurant, you know what I say to that? Good. Good. You deserve it. I speak for a lot of adults. When I state that I don't have kids, I don't want kids, I don't want to be a part of raising your kids, I don't give a shit about your kids, and it's been said that it takes a village to raise a child, well, guess what? We're not a part of your village. We're not. There is absolutely nothing worse as an adult wanting to go out to a nicer restaurant with friends or family to enjoy a nice meal, only to have loud and or unruly children disrupting the meal. And I can tell you this much, the parents who get fined are the ones who need to be fined. They act as though kids should be allowed to be kids, but the problem with that logic is when you go to places that are geared towards grown-ups, they don't like kids acting like kids. They don't like the screeching, they don't like the crying, they don't like the babbling. More often than not, their volume can't be controlled. And it disrupts the meal for everyone else because everyone else can hear this and everyone else is distracted by it. Now, to quote the one review where he said, well, my kids watch a tablet till the food arrived, guess what? You have no idea how disruptive a tablet can be in a nice restaurant. I mean, when I say nice restaurant, if we're talking something like Denny's or IHOP or Burger King, where you expect there to be a lot of kids, that's one thing. But if it's a restaurant that's geared more towards grown-ups, they don't want kids there because it's distracting. And if they're using a tablet, especially it can be very distracting, especially if the dining area is darker. The light from the tablet is like the bat signal, and the volume, unless you're using earbuds, can be heard by some to everyone else. The parents of these kids have no earthly idea how to parent. No earthly idea to tell a child no, and no earthly idea to keep their kids in line. It is literally that simple. And if you try to tell them, you're an asshole. I've seen this 1,000 times before. And this issue becomes newsworthy when restaurants have finally had enough of this horse shit and start issuing rules to parents. How dare you tell me to raise your child? Well, raise your child better. One such issue, this was from a few years ago, a restaurant, I believe it was a Mexican restaurant, got heat for giving parents a card with expectations on how children are to behave while in the restaurant. Now, while this shouldn't be necessary in and of itself, the reason for it is just mind-boggling. Apparently, a child was allowed by a parent to use a quarter to scratch paint on the wall, causing several $1,000s in damage. Several $1,000s. If I caused $20 worth of damage to a restaurant when I was a young kid, my dad would have whooped me with an extension cord. I wouldn't be going to a restaurant for a while, and I'd be forced to work to fix the damage. And I would have deserved every bit of it. I would have been grounded. I would have deserved every bit of it. But this next example is even more infuriating because it shows how selfish these idiot parents are. There was a whole thing a few years ago where bars in Brooklyn, New York, started banning patrons from bringing children to the bar. Now, why anybody would bring a child to a bar is questionable. I'm just going to say that. Some of the patrons, when asked, claimed that they had to because, quote, they wanted a night out, but they couldn't afford a sitter. So while you have a bar full of people getting drunk, watching sports, you've got a family just annoying the hell out of everyone. You can't afford a sitter? Tough shit. Well, so here is a message to parents on behalf of somebody who doesn't like children, who doesn't want to tolerate children. When you have a child, you make the decision to have a child, you make the decision to be responsible for it from birth to age 18. Your child, your responsibility, your problem. It is not the government's job. It is not the school's job. It is not YouTube's job. It is not business's job. It is not the TV. It's not TV's job. It's your job to raise your child. If you can't afford a sitter to have a night out, your problem, not ours. You're not having a night out. Oh well. If you get fined $50 because your kid is loud and unruly in a restaurant for grown-ups, your fault, your problem, not ours. You made the choice to have kids. I didn't. Nobody else did. So your kids are your problem, not ours. And I can tell you, the rest of us are sick and tired of being expected to suffer for your kids' benefit. Parents just don't want to parent. And they think that telling a kid no is a bad thing because it'll make them cry. They can't handle having sad kids and telling them no, so we have to placate them. That's all it is. It's just me, wah, 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 me. But I can tell you also, this problem is not just limited to restaurants because I work in a grocery store. Of the tens of thousands of parents and kids that have come through the store, I can say that there are a lot of good kids. I'll give you a perfect example. This one I overheard, 6 months ago, I believe. It was a mother and two daughters leaving the store. And the older daughter has a bottle of water, and the mother asks, "Can I have a sip of your water?" To which the older daughter replies, "Yes, Mom, it's your water. You can have as much of it as you want." The younger daughter pipes up, "Yes, Mom, it's your water. Enjoy it." That right there, good parent, good kids. Worth praise. That right there was a good parent. And because the daughter's respectful, they're appreciative, They're not going to argue. I like this parent and I like her kids. I think they're destined for great things. I really do. But there are also a lot of dopes. There are also a lot of these kinds of parents. And the way that I've seen some kids speak to their parents, if I tried to speak to my dad the way I've seen some kids speak to their parents, I wouldn't have any teeth. My dad would have knocked me back into my place and I would have deserved it. I've also seen some of the behavior of kids with their parents in tow is criminal. It doesn't border on criminal, it is criminal, and the parents will defend the child. There's no hope, everyone. These are the kind of kids that are going to be in charge. There's absolutely no hope. And again, the parents seem to think we should put up with these kids because kids will be kids. Well, guess what? Parents need to be parents. They need to step up. They need to keep their kids in line. They need to punish their kids and they need to tell their kids no sometimes. And if you have kids who are loud, whether or not you see it is irrelevant. If you have kids who are loud, then take them to Chuck E. Cheese. Take them to Burger King. Take them to Denny's. Stay away from the nice places. Let us have a meal in peace. Because, and I cannot stress this enough, outside of yourselves, nobody gives a shit about your kids. Nobody wants to put up with your kids. Nobody thinks your kids are cute. Nobody enjoys being around your kids. And if you don't like it, tough shit. You can't accept it, tough shit. The world isn't going to change to make you happy. And we're not putting up with this shit anymore. And I think restaurants should just flat out ban kids under the age of 17 sometimes. Because some of these kids are just completely unfixable. Whew. With that, episode 94 comes to an end. I'll catch up on some non-racing news next week. I'm Dave Frost. Leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you then.